I knew that was going to come up today. How many of you seen that episode on Angler West? Recommend that you, if just for off-season giggles, you check that episode out. There's a lot of information that's visual in there. Rick and I, or anybody up here, can stand up here all day long and show you what a technique looks like, but until you kind of see it, it won't register until you get out in the water and do a lot of practicing. That 100 gallon, they call it a cooler. I bought it at Sportsman's warehouse. It's called the Grizzly 400. Fits right in the center of my cockpit there. We go all the way around it. We use it as a table that works great for my boat. Those of us who have 20 to 26 foot fiberglass boats, how much space is there in your cockpit to make all this work? Not a whole lot. You're more cabin than you are cockpit for the most part, right? So think about maximizing the area that you've got. Now your Defiance has got a lot of back there.
It does.
What are your rod holders set up like?
Well, we have about 6 adjustables that'll lay flat.
Okay. You hanging fish out there?
Yeah.
Awesome. How's it work?
Well, we haven't been hanging them vertical.
Okay.
And we heard from Del Stevens the other day that he wants somebody just to bring it in. Because he thinks if you hang one vertical and lose it, you can screw the school.
Might be.
But we haven't been hanging them vertical.
Might be. If you make some mistakes and break off 2 or 3 fish, you know what? Yeah, you probably could lose a skittish school. But if you've done your work and produced a really hot school, break off your 2 doesn't make a difference at all. So on my boat, I personally don't like to pull on fish that are hooked with bait because it takes too long to pull them back in. So those are the ones we let get a little tired. We leave them in the rod holder for a while, and they serve as decoys. They work just great for that.
They make such a great run.
Yeah, they're going to go away from you. You've got 30-pound top shot you're using for your live bait, maybe 25. If you're really hot early in the season, you're using a lot of bait, you can probably fish 40 and get away with it. But the limitation on a bait setup is that little tiny hook. If you're fishing dead bait or light bait, you're using a number 1, number 2 owner fly liner or Gamakatsu live bait hook. They're thin. They're nothing like the power you can put on a tuna with any of these assist hooks here. So the aluminum boat guys, aluminum boats are easy to customize and change. You can add things, subtract things for the most part. All you need is a welder and a drill, and that's what I've done in my boat. I removed the rear rails. I put all those lay flat rod holders back there, and the motors get in the way, right? How many have either a stern drive or an inboard? You don't have to worry about that, do you? If you get a fish that's really going crazy, then you get into your running gear. But for the most part, you got to deal with the motors. So, if you've got a lot of 5'6" rods and a lot of short guys on your boat, what are you going to have? Troubles with the motors. Fish go around the boat the other way, and somebody's got to climb up on the transom, fall in the water, and go up back and underneath the props. Please be safe out there. Use a little longer rod. It helps to work. It helps to do that. Keep one really tall guy on board, then he can do most of that work for you. You're going to have to lead those fish around the transom anyway, so you can put them in the rod holder on the other side of the boat. Please. Why?
Quality of the fish, you don't have the spike marks in your loins, and easier to actually get them in depth than a gaffing.
I'm an expert gaff operator, and I suck. I can hit 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, right where they need to be. But if I've got a shaky angler who's, okay, an albacore is going to pull the hardest on you the last 5 feet in that death roll, right? And if you've got an angler that's really having trouble putting the right kind of torque on that fish to get his head up, so the person operating the gaff can put that gaff where it's supposed to be, then you're going to have troubles. You end up gaffing in the tail, gaffing in the money loins, and then what? You got a hole right through the best part of that fish. I like nets. We still use gaffs, but honestly, nothing better than a cheap net. Boom, they swim right into the net, comes over the side, back in the water with your gear. No big deal. Little mess, averted. Please.
You're gaffing or netting and having to do both yourself. Which would you prefer?
All of us. We got one guy with 3 fish on over here, and he's helping with his left hand deal with the fish that's stuck in the corner, and you whack him on the head a little bit to stun him before you spike him, and while you're bleeding him and get him into the slush tank. You're all doing that together. Now my boat, we all work as a team. They're all of our fish. This is another philosophy here about working as a team. On a jigging boat, you are one engine, and you got 4 pistons, 2 pistons, 4 pistons, 5 pistons. You are all together. And if one guy is up there eating a sandwich, and when the bite's hot, you probably aren't going to get a whole lot of
So
work
specific
out.
to your question, if I was going to have to do it singly, I'd rather cap the fish. There's too much if you're going to net, there's too much stuff involved in handling a net for one guy to do. I've seen guys do it before. It's a rodeo watching somebody try and salmon fish do that. Never mind tuna fish. The cool thing about tuna fish in the net with 2 guys is tuna don't have reverse gear. Salmon do, for some reason. They can jump out of just about anything. But you put that net in front of a tuna, it's going to swim right in. What you don't want to do is you don't want to put it down on the floor. Hold that bag up, get them on the floor, and get them out. Don't get that tail caught up in the net. And even better, if you could pop the hook out before they get on the floor, that guy can get back fishing, and then you can pop it out on the floor and deal with it and put the net away. But
I like nets now. I was converted near the end of last season for the most part. We got 3 or 4 gaps on the boat. We use them. Any of us have a 40-foot sport fisher? Ooh, we're all. You do? You're the only guy in the room, huh? You got all the room in the world.
It's bigger than 40.
There's the door, man. You need to go to a little higher quality seminar. Find somebody like Timmy Robinson that gets paid to do this. So, all right. The only reason I asked that question is that I've been on a number of my buddies' boats that are 40, 45, 50-foot sport fishers. And they've got all the room in the world. They've got a 12-foot, 13-foot beam, and there isn't really much need for efficiency. Everybody else has a shorter boat, a smaller cockpit, less fish storage. You're maximizing the efficiency of your boat. Think about the way this setup works. You're trying to hook up 2, 3, 4 fish at a time, keep them in the water, keep them from getting wrapped up in your props and each other, and get cockpit cleared out. Get a place where you can keep chum and keep it flowing. Get a place up above the cockpit so you can hang 15, 20 rods, because you'll need that many rod holders. How many rod holders you got on the black boat? Is that all?
25 to 30 is minimum.
My little 24-foot rod, North River has 37 rod holders. I know it's terrible. We don't always fill up all the rod holders unless Jimmy Boo comes and fills up. Brings 8 or 10 of his own. Please. Talk a little louder.
If you're in a little enough boat, sometimes it makes sense to have the rod rather than trying to move past another person. My boat's small enough so you can't walk past them.
Your boat's a 21-foot center console.
It's like 20 and a half.
I know that boat. Oh, excuse me, it's oversized at 21. You know, but what's the advantage you have? You get to go all the way up around the bow.
Not really.
Fish to the camp.
Because that's where all the access is.
Well, again, efficiency, maximize your ability to.
You can crawl around the bow, that's right.
Okay, please.
A little bit,
Louder.
a little bit with the gapping versus netting. One of my questions is going to be fishing in the front of the boat, and our boat you can kind of walk around, fine.
Absolutely.
But gapping fish, so often I'm sort of leading into the back, which is more work. You guys gap off the front?
No, we try not to waste our time. Unless it's an emergency, unless that guy just ripped that fish to the boat so fast he's there waiting for you. We'll run up there with the net.
Yeah.
Try to pass them back to the cockpit, get them out of the way. The bow on North River isn't very big, so you can reach down there and you've got plenty of room to do that.
Well, if you've seen the Angler West episode, Roy hooked a bunch of fish up on the bow, and Dave's like, no, bow! We try and pass the rods to the back of the boat so we don't have to deal with everything coming from the front all the way to the back, because it's a small boat, and then you have to clean the whole thing. When you gap the fish, they bleed like a seven big, and then you have blood from stern to stern, not contained in the cockpit, so.
The tail end of the boat's already just covered in blood anyway. Just keep it all back there in the first place. Yes.
You're in 5 days.
5 minutes.
Electronics, trip planning.
Okay. Last 5 minutes. I know I wasn't going to go into detail too much on any of these topics except for the gear. One piece of gear that you guys will need to do this effectively, consistently over the years, is a solid set of eyeballs into the water. I don't care what brand you get. If you want to come see me, I'll hook you up with a rain marine system. They're inexpensive these days. They create really good fish pictures. You can figure out where the fish are below your boat. I can see fish at up to 12 to 15 knots if I slow down just a little bit off plane. The way I've got my mounted transducer. Cheap setup, less than $700 retail for the black box and the transducer on my boat. And you see fish below your boat, it's time to stop and start fishing. If you've got any other brand units, talk to somebody, talk to an expert can help you tune it. If you've got an old sonar that's rain marine or Garmin, turn the gain down to about 51% so you can see the returners instead of a whole bunch of garbage down there. If your unit is looking for the bottom of the ocean at 3,000 feet, you're wasting your time. You're going to get bupkis on your sounder. You've got to shut off the auto lock feature, get it to look at the top 100, 150 feet of water column, because that's where the fish are that we care about for the most part. Play with the gains. I don't remember what the magic number on the Lowrance unit is. Maybe somebody can remember. I know the Garmin's about 48 to 50, and Rain Marine is certainly about 50 to 51 on the gain. That's on the DSM 300 units. My chirp unit, I don't have to play around with the gain at all. All I've got to do is compress the view to the top 100 to 150 feet of the water column, and maybe use a little bit of filter. If I can tell from this photo, I don't have a filter on. There'll be a little dialog box right here. And see, that's where I'm seeing some of this interference below the thermocline. If I had to turn my filter up to maybe 20 or 30%, this would have cleaned up, and all you would have seen are the tuna. Doesn't that also something to do with the transducer, whether you have what type of transducer? You've got to get the right transducer that's mated for the black box sounder or the sounder that works on the inside of your head unit. But if your transducer is mismounted, you won't see anything anyway, unless when you're just on the dead drift. Now, this was sitting there on the dead drift, but you want to be able to see tuna while you're trolling, don't you? Absolutely. 6, 7, 8 knots. You see a fish and it's not hooked up on the troll, stop your boat. Back it up, throw some chum, start fishing. Fish are down there, you just saw them. Other things you might need are some more rod holders. If you've got 4 or 5 rod holders, that's probably not enough. You've got to have your room for your troll gear to get it out of the water and out of the way to begin with. Then you've got to have 8 or 10 jigging rods. You've got to have some casting rods. I'm sorry, ladies, who came along. Apologize. You know, this is not an expensive sport. It's really expensive. So I've got set around the cockpit. I've got 3 on each side. I've got a tower that I've mounted 3 sets of banks. So I've got about 25 right around the cockpit. I've got 3 or 4 more up front, and then 2 or 3 on top. That's 20 for a little boat. 20 rods. I've got 20 tuna rods that I bring on every trip. Rick brings his 3 or 4 finesse rods. Jimmy Root brings a dozen, because Jimmy cannot handle a rod that's hooked up with a left crank on it. So he has to bring them all. But he even turns them around and uses a spinning rod on the right, and I can't handle that myself either. But, folks, I'm out of time today. I appreciate your questions. I appreciate your interest in this really addicting part of fishery.